Well, very good. I hope you all are enjoying your dinner. I'm in the business of telling stories, and so I thought I would tell you a story tonight, and it happens to be my story. In early spring of 1985, I was 22 years old, first year out of college, and I had my very first job in television. I actually was at a TV station in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I loved it. I was on top of the world. It's just that I didn't feel very well. I remember covering a very heated board meeting one night for a story for that night's news, and I kept having to leave the meeting every 10 minutes to use the bathroom. I have no idea how that story turned out that night, but it was an omen of things to come, and ironically enough, it was a hospital board meeting. Well, a short time later, I had scheduled just a routine doctor's appointment, and I went to the doctor's office. The nurse took my blood, and the doctor called me into his office, and he said, "I hate to tell you, but you have type 1 diabetes. Oh, happy day." I remember those were his exact words. Oh, happy day. Well, I was devastated, but I was actually lucky. I lived in this little tiny one-bedroom apartment, and right across the street was this hospital with two pioneering diabetic doctors. I mean, I could have thrown a rock from my apartment and would have hit the building. Well, I checked in immediately to the hospital, and I felt like I was on vacation. I mean, I'd been working really hard at my job, and here I came to the hospital. The nurses got my diabetes under control. I got to wear street clothes, lounged around, read good books. And I went to class every day at the hospital, and I learned all about diabetes. I learned about insulin and testing your blood sugars, how to read food labels. It was great. And the one thing that these two diabetic doctors, they were real pioneers. The one thing that they drilled into my head is that you should always keep your blood sugars between 80 and 120 as much as possible. 80 to 120, 80 to 120, 80 to 120. They drilled it into my head. Well, 28 years later, that tight control has really paid off. I'm kind of proud to say that I've never had a hemoglobin A1C above 7%. I've always been in the 4, 5, and 6% range. But the flip side of tight control, I have woken up in an emergency room before and having no earthly idea how I got there. So I have had my share of low spells, but overall, I think I've done pretty well. And, you know, I have a real system. I've developed a really good system. I've never been on a pump. For 27 of my 28 years with diabetes, I carried an insulin vial and a syringe in a sandwich baggie and kept it tucked in my pants pocket. Only about a year ago, actually less than a year ago, I switched to an insulin pen. Why I didn't switch earlier, I don't know. My wife says I don't like change. But the insulin pen has been incredibly convenient. And then 2 years ago, I got a continuous glucose monitor, which I believe is revolutionary because, of course, it tells you what your blood sugar is every second. Here's mine. I've got the Dexcom. Goes with me everywhere. And this is incredibly valuable, especially with me being on stories. You know, when I'm going to interview somebody, I need to know what my blood sugar is. And it really has kept me out of danger all 2 years that I've had it. I have other things that I do, parts of my system. Whenever I go on stories, I always carry a lunchbox with me everywhere I go, and I've got it stuffed with bananas. I take a Sprite bottle with me everywhere. And so, you know, I've really done well. I think I've done pretty well. I mean, of course, there are challenges and that kind of thing. But, and I should say with that continuous glucose monitor, it's a funny thing. My greatest challenge with that is in the middle of the night when the warning alarm buzzes. I'm so tired. My wife says, "Scotty, get up and eat something." "Oh, I'm too tired. I don't want to eat the M&Ms that I keep by my bed. I'm too tired. The warning alarm buzzes 10 times. I swear my wife is going to throw the thing out the window." Fortunately, she hasn't yet. But anyway, I do have a system, but the ultimate goal is to find a cure. That's really why we're all here tonight. I do feel like I was lucky. I mean, I was 22 years old when I was diagnosed. I could not imagine being a little kid or even a teenager being diagnosed and the challenges they have to confront. And that is really why we're here, for them to find that cure. We have made tremendous advances, and I do think a cure is within sight. And when that day comes, when we do find a cure, I will be the first to raise my arms and shout, "Oh, happy day." Well, it is my pleasure to introduce two ladies who have devoted the last year to ensuring this wonderful event is a success. From hosting parties to sending out letters and pounding the pavement for auction items, they are true champions for the Gala and for JDRF and have truly taken the title Gala Chair seriously. Please join me in a warm welcome for this year's Gala Chairs, Kelly Greenlee and Susan Lundberg.
Welcome to our 10th anniversary Hope Bloom Gala. I am honored and humbled to serve as a co-chair with my good friend Susan at this fabulous event. It has been amazing the support that we have felt with the JDRF families, staff, friends, and our community in which we live. We are all truly blessed. A very special thank you to Sarah Blackman and Robin Andrews, who have worked tirelessly with us this past year. Thank you. I also want to say thank you to the Gala Committee for working so hard from the kickoff party at the Oyster Roast in the fall to this evening as Hope blooms for a successful gala. And to our Gala champions, who have been so supportive financially and physically. And to my amazing husband, who has been so loving and wonderful. He liked that one. The seed was planted 10 years ago with a few families who believed in a cure, who still believe in a cure. And to our daughter, Allie, we pledge to work even harder to find a cure.
Good evening. I'd just like to start off by saying after so many months of planning, it's wonderful to look out in this room at all of you and to be able to say thank you for being here at our 10th anniversary Hope Gala. 10 years ago, a group of families passionate for finding a cure for type 1 diabetes held the inaugural event. Since then, their efforts with so many others over the years have helped to tend and grow this event into what it is this evening. A celebration of hope blooming and of raising $5 million towards research for a cure. The path that brought me here tonight began with my friendship with Kelly. We met when our boys were in school together. When their daughter Allie was diagnosed with diabetes in 2005, I really knew very, very little about this disease. Since then, we have watched their family come to terms with Allie's diagnosis and to embark on a journey to meet it head on with the positive determination that they bring to everything they do. The next year, they invited us to attend JDRF Gala, and we were honored to come and impressed with the dedication of so many people who support finding a cure for this disease. Little did we know at that time that our family would be dealing with the very same diagnosis. Over the 2011 Christmas holidays, our family decided to take a road trip to Disney World. On the trip, we noticed that our daughter Haley was constantly asking for drinks. She was always thirsty, and then she was making frequent bathroom stops, which I can assure you, with 2 teenage boys in the car, makes for a very long car ride to and from Florida. This behavior continued at home, and Haley could never seem to get enough to drink. So one morning I called Kelly to ask her opinion. Kelly suggested that I call the doctor, so I called the pediatrician's office, hoping to make an appointment for later in the week. When the pediatrician said, "Can you be here in an hour?" I knew that something was up. It was January 25th, 2011, and that day, a simple finger prick at the doctor's office changed Haley's life and all of our lives, actually, and we were admitted to Wake Med that afternoon. Kelly met us at the hospital, and she was there when the diagnosis of Haley's type 1 diabetes was confirmed, and the Greenleys have been standing with us ever since. When I was asked to co-chair this event with Kelly, I was really nervous. I'm still a little nervous. This was all so new to us. However, we found that the people who hold dear this cause of finding a cure for type 1 diabetes to be a fantastic bunch of people. You all are supportive, kind, embracing, optimistic, educated about this disease, and passionate. We have really been overwhelmed by the love and care that Haley and our family has received. And I have been truly honored to work with such a wonderful group of people, and a really fun group of people as well. Tonight, I'm pleased to report that Haley is actually doing very well, and she faces the challenges that she meets with a positive outlook. This evening, we all have cause to be positive, as it brings us closer to the goal of finding a cure for diabetes. Once again, I would just like to thank you all for being here with us tonight. To all the JDRF staff, to everyone here who has volunteered, to the board members, to the sponsors, to the patrons, we really thank you for your hard work and support that have helped make this evening a success. I want to thank my awesome husband for encouraging me to do this, and my family for their support. And finally, I thank my dear friend Kelly. It has been an honor and a pleasure. Now let's all enjoy the evening as hope blooms.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, at this time, I would like to introduce the 2010 Living and Giving Award recipients. They will explain the honor of the annual Living and Giving Award and introduce this year's recipients. Please welcome Mike and Eileen Hendrick.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And good evening, everyone. Eileen and I are pleased to have the opportunity tonight to introduce the 2013 Living and Giving Award recipients. We began our personal journey with type 1 diabetes 16 years ago this past Tuesday, when Ruth, our now 23-year-old development coordinator on the staff of the JDRF office in Denver, Colorado, was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes.
Thank you.
Our JDRF involvement actually began later that year, and we've been involved for the 16 years since, through that 2004 initial gala that Susan and Kelly talked about right through today. And I would like to report to you that Ruth is doing great, and a lot of that is due partially to the discoveries and all the advances that have come in the type 1 diabetes area through the work of JDRF and many others in the field. So as parents, longtime local and national volunteers, as well as past honorees, we are delighted to have this year's recipients join our dedicated and passionate group of JDRF honorees.
And tonight, before we introduce this year's Living and Giving Award recipients, Mike and I would like for you all to join us in recognizing and thanking our past gala honorees. Living and Giving recipients honored each year since the Hope Gala inception are as follows: And if you're with us tonight, please stand. 2004, Bob Ingram. 2005, Charles and Ronnie Goldstein. 2006, Dr. Mary Ann Morris and Jean Litton. 2007, Larry and Debbie Robbins. 2008, Jeff and Pam Stocks. 2009, Ambassador James and Helen Kane. 2010, the Hendren family, Mike, Eileen, Charles, and Ruth. 2011, Diane Adams and family. And corporate honorees, all scripts. And our last year's Living and Giving Award recipients, Harvey and Karen Braswell and their lovely family. Please join us in applauding these incredible individuals who together have helped JDRF raise $5 million through the Hope Gala over the past 10 years, and who through their dedication year after year have been instrumental in making the gala the success it is today. Thank you all.
Now to this year. The Living and Giving Award is actually symbolized by a piece of blown glass in the shape of a blue flame. We believe this flame is symbolic of the hope that all families living with diabetes carry. The hope of a cure that will lead us to the freedom from type 1 diabetes and all of its complications that burns deep within each of us that are affected by this disease. We are honored to present the Living and Giving Award this year to two men who have made it their life's work and mission to find a cure for diabetes and to relieve the burden and complications that our loved ones face. They truly, truly embody the current JDRF tagline, which is both improving lives as well as curing type 1 diabetes. Though one is from UNC and one is from Duke, something Eileen and I can both relate to, their work joins together the mission of JDRF in search for a cure.
Mike and I have had the honor of knowing our first honoree for very many years. Our first honoree's interest in diabetes research began when he worked in the laboratory of his uncle at the University of Copenhagen shortly after graduating from Duke University. He received his first grant from JDRF while a postdoctoral fellow at Duke. Not yet to Duke. At the university, that was a Dookie speaking. Postdoctoral fellow at the University of California, San Francisco, and has been funded continuously by JDRF ever since. He has been happily married to Dr. Patricia Ashley for 28 years, and they have 4 children, all adorable, I'm sure.
And now, equal time for the UNC side. Our second honoree has been studying immunology of type 1 diabetes for over 20 years, starting his scientific career in the Department of Medical Biophysics at the University of Toronto in Canada. JDRF was instrumental in establishing his early career in the type 1 field and has continually funded his research. Away from the laboratory, he enjoys spending time with his wife, Andrea, and his 2 children, Jocelyn and Logan. So now, if you will, please join us in welcoming Dr. Christopher Newgard and Dr. Roland Tisch to the stage.
Okay, I caught that distinct Tar Heel current in this room. But let me tell you, and you all know this, type 1 diabetes is about team, okay? And it transcends Duke and UNC very easily. I'm very fortunate tonight to have my team here. And these are faculty members that I do the research on pancreatic islet regeneration with at Duke University, and I'd like them to stand and be recognized by all of you. Dr. Hans Hohmeyer. Hans comes from Germany. He and I have worked together for 15 years or more, and he's the director of Islet Research in our Stedman Nutrition and Metabolism Center at Duke. Dr. Larry Moss. Larry is old like me. We've known each other since we were postdoctoral fellows at UCSF in the mid-1980s. And Larry leads our efforts in understanding genetic signatures of type 1 diabetes. He's a brilliant man and a tremendous resource for all of us. Thank you, Larry. Dr. Jennifer Moss. You'll notice the same last name, definitely the better part of the family. Jennifer and Larry worked together in development of a unique model for understanding pancreatic islet regeneration, and that is a small fish called the zebrafish. And the zebrafish can regenerate pancreatic islets in ways that humans or even mice cannot do. If we can figure out how and why they do that, we want to translate that to humans. And last but not least, Dr. Michelle Arlotto. Please stand up. Michelle is involved in creating the what we call the vectors, the way we get genes into cells and change the performance of cells. But more than that, how many of you in this room know of people who are glue persons in your organizations? Someone who keeps everybody upbeat and happy when things are tough? That's what Michelle Arlotto is for us. All right. Well, thank you very much for my friends and colleagues. And last but not least, if I may, I'd like to ask my wife, Patricia Ashley, to stand. Patricia is a neonatologist working in the intensive care nursery at Duke University. Obviously, an extremely important job. And without her, I wouldn't be up here and accepting this fine award. Thank you very much. Let me just close with this thought, ladies and gentlemen. We live in a very, very difficult time. I don't know whether you want to call it sequestration or fiscal cliff or financial Armageddon. I don't know what it is that we're facing, but it's a very difficult time. And to illustrate that, let me just tell you that we're very reliant in our business on an agency called the National Institutes of Health. And I don't know how many of you all know this, but in the last 10 years of doing research, the funding percentile, that is, the percentage of grants that are funded, has dropped from the 25th percentile to now the 8th percentile. And with sequestration, it could drop more. What's really unfortunate and difficult about that is I could honestly say to you that I have never been more hopeful in the theme of this event here tonight, and more excited about the discoveries that we're making and the potential for true translation to therapy than I am at this moment. We've had some real breakthroughs in our lab. And it's not very difficult to understand then that with a funding percentile of the 8th percentile at the federal level, an organization like the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation is absolutely critical for us to be able to achieve the things that we want to achieve to help your family members with type 1 diabetes. So please remember that here tonight, and thank you very much.
This is a tremendous honor, and I would like to thank JDRF, Kelly, Susan, the Gala committee for this award. JDRF, as I was mentioned earlier on in the video, has played an important role throughout my time, efforts working in type 1 diabetes. It was JDRF that essentially gave me that initial push to start our research in type 1 diabetes. Since then, support from JDRF in the context of grants, research grants, fellowships for training individuals in the lab have all been really instrumental in allowing our lab to progress and have the successes that we've been able to achieve. Work related to understanding the immunology of the disease process, as well as developing different approaches so that we could hopefully manipulate the disease body's autoimmune response, and in this way establish a cure, prevention, as well as treatment for the disease process. So I'm terribly indebted to JDRF for their support, but I'm also very grateful to all of you. It is your effort, your support that define JDRF, and I'm convinced that we will find a cure for type 1 diabetes, and that cure will come about largely due to your dedication, your passion, and JDRF's commitment to supporting research. And as Chris noted, in today's funding climate, it is extremely difficult, and that means that JDRF has always been an important piece there, institute providing support for type 1 diabetes research, but it has become even more important. And having events like tonight really will be a key benefit for really helping promote research and driving us and you for a cure for type 1 diabetes. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the next portion of the evening is your opportunity to respond to the energy in this room right now. It is the ultimate reason we are here tonight. It is my pleasure to introduce the 2011 Living and Giving Award recipient and the very first Fund a Cure speaker, Ms. Diane Adams.
Oh, can you hear me now? All right, great. So, as I was saying, what an amazing night. So, round of applause, great live auction, huh? Awesome. And you know what? It's even been a more extraordinary 10 years since our first gala. You see, I remember, like a number of you, that very first gala. My daughter Danielle and I had written a poem about her life since she was diagnosed at the age of 4. And we shared it that night at that first gala. And so before I introduce you to our fabulous Fund a Cure speaker, I'd like to share a few lines with you from that poem 10 years ago. And the title was What If You Were Me, from Danielle's perspective. So what if you were me? Would you understand why you couldn't go to sleepovers or overnight camps? Or would you be content with your friends always coming to see you? Would you wish that you didn't have to pray each night, that you'd make it through the night without a seizure? Or would you be thankful for the power of prayer? Would you forgive your mother if she falsely accused you of faking low blood sugar to get out of cleaning your room? Or would you forgive her anyway? What if you were me? Would you be resentful? And I remember Danielle's response, and she said, not a chance, because God created me special for a reason. God created me special so I could help cure diabetes. And I tell you that tonight because I want to start by saying thank you to all of you for the difference that you've made, not only in Danielle's life, but in the lives of so many people across the world in terms of improving their lives and helping them get better. So a major round of applause for each of you for the difference that you've made. So you see, when you think about that difference, you think 10 years ago, today, the insulin pump is much improved. There's the wireless continuous glucose monitor. Danielle had the opportunity to participate in the artificial pancreas clinical trial. You know what, 10 years ago, that was only a dream. And next year, there will be 3 outpatient clinical trials going on. So that artificial pancreas is going to be right behind it, allowing so much better control. We're on our way. And as for Danielle, I have to tell you, she does go to sleepovers now. I should say occasionally, because I'm still working on letting go at 17. And you know, and Danielle's had 8 seizures over a course of a few years. But I'm happy to tell you, because of all the advances in technology, because of your support, she's not had a seizure for 3 years. That's pretty amazing. And last but not least, in terms of falsely accusing her of faking low blood sugars, I got to tell you, if you talk to her tonight, she'll tell you, I still have some work to do around that one. So that one I'm working on. But we've come a long, long way. So tonight, the Fund to Cure, we've talked about the honorees and the incredible work that they're doing, Dr. Newgard and Dr. Tish, in terms of the beta cell regeneration, in terms of suppressing the autoimmune response. All of that is going to make such a difference. You know what that means? So for those who have type 1 diabetes, their beta cells would be regenerated. They would make insulin just like you and I do, meaning that they would no longer have to be checking their blood sugar 7-8 times a day. They wouldn't be checking they wouldn't be counting carbs. They wouldn't have the experience, the lows, the highs, and most importantly, they wouldn't have to worry about the complications to come. So my guess is all of you feel like I do. I think another round of applause for the 2 honorees that are just making such a difference in this area. Woo! Thank you, thank you. And now I have the honor to introduce you to our very special Fund to Cure speaker. So he is a wonderful man and father to a son with type 1 diabetes, who has a twin, a very active twin, who does not have type 1 diabetes. When his son was diagnosed at 20 months old, his life, the life of his wife, and their entire family changed in a pretty significant way. Not forever, but until there's a cure. And our speaker tonight is an award-winning photographer. As soon as his son was diagnosed with type 1, he immediately immersed himself into JDRF and contributed so much of his time and talent. All of the portraits that you see here this evening are his work. And those portraits of the adults, of the children, represent the folks that we're here to support tonight. And I'd also tell you, this very special man has given so much in terms of vision and energy and passion to the JDRF chapter, the local JDRF chapter board. He is a research information volunteer, and he's always spreading the JDRF message. Matter of fact, just recently, he was able to have JDRF be the recipient of the funds that came from the Allscripts Tobacco Road Marathon to the tune of $60,000. So to use Danielle's words, God created Heath Clayton for a reason. He created him to help us find a cure for type 1 diabetes. Please join me in welcoming Heath to the stage.
Thanks. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Chance's dad. I'm also a loving husband to my wife Suzanne and an engaged dad to my other son Tasman. But tonight I'm here on behalf of my son Chance. Hemingway wrote, "A man's own world does not end in the great paintings. comes to an end when an island boy walks up the road with a radio message from the local post office. My life changed when I was sitting on the 4th floor conference room at SAS on September 17th, 2009. And my manager pulled me aside and he said, "Heath, you need to get to the hospital as soon as you can." Now, a bunch of you out in the audience have made a drive like that in your lives. You know what I'm talking about. My drive was 20 minutes. It felt like hours, right? I still remember the thoughts in my head on that drive that evening as I stand before you tonight. Why chance? How is it possible that a sweet and loving 20-month-old child is sitting in a hospital bed with a disease that nobody knows how to cure? What did he do to deserve that? How will his life change? Will he be able to play sports and hike and travel like I dreamed that he would? Well, 3.5 years later, I'm happy to be up on this stage and tell you, we answered that last question. He loves to ride his bike. He loves to swim. He did his first 4-mile hike before he was 4. And he's done a bunch of hiking since. He and his brother Tasman have already been to 29 states, and they've camped in a whole bunch of them. It's not always easy, but we persevere. We made the decision early on that Chance's life would not be defined by diabetes. So when I got to the hospital that night, I took Chance in my arms, and I told him everything's going to be okay. Because that's what a dad does, right? Your child's hurting, doesn't know why, doesn't understand what's wrong. Tell them it's going to be okay. I think about that every now and then, and I think to myself that I hope I didn't lie to my child then, that everything will be okay. And it didn't get easier that night. See, I'm an analytical kind of guy, right? I work at SAS, right? I like to get all the data, all the facts, gather it all together, sift through it, figure out what's important, make a list of decisions, figure out the right one, make the decision to move on. That's how I'm wired. So when Chance finally fell asleep that night, I asked the nurse, I said, "Hey, can you bring me some information on diabetes?" Because quite frankly, I didn't know much about it. So they went to the Mayo Clinic site. I printed off a small book, right? They bring it to me, and I step out of the room, and I go there, and I start to read it. Y'all remember when you first read about diabetes? You know, it goes pretty well, right? You read on there, and then you get to that one section on complications. Complications is a clever word, right? In the type 1 diabetes world, we talk a lot about complications. The possible complications if you don't manage your diabetes well. We don't talk a lot about what those complications are. It's because they're really bad things. Kidney failure, blindness, amputating your feet, those are hard words to read when those consequences may apply to your son in the room next to you. I don't know how we would have got through the first couple of weeks without Wake Med. They're in the room tonight. Without Dr. Lagarde and his staff. Truth be told, Dr. Lagarde's staff probably didn't know if they were going to make it through those first 3 weeks, as much as my wife called their hotline at 3 a.m. every night. And JDRF reached out to us when we were still in the hospital with our child. And the day after we got back from the hospital, there was a volunteer in our kitchen, Cindy Maystow, and her 4-year-old son and his insulin pump. She had a real simple message that day. But man, we really needed to hear it. We needed to hear it from another parent who'd gone down this path before. Her message was that there is life after diabetes. You can manage it. It's hard, but you can do it. It's been easier for us to manage it because of the accomplishments of JDRF. From the test strips that we use, the test strips, they give us his blood glucose in a matter of seconds, to the high-tech insulin pump that he wears 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but enables us to give him the precise amount of insulin that he needs to stay healthy. You know, 10 years ago, JDRF was involved in less than 5 human clinical trials. Quite frankly, there just wasn't a lot out there to test. It was all still in the labs and in the universities. Today, JDRF is involved with over 50 human clinical trials, each of which will help treat, prevent, and cure diabetes in some way. So when Suzanne and I had dried our tears, got over our anger, we decided we wanted to make a difference. We got involved with JDRF. They have improved the quality of life for Chance. They had helped us. We wanted to help them. So we accepted their challenges as our challenges. Challenges, right? Everybody has challenges in their life. Some are harder than others. I used to think that raising twin boys was hard. It's not. Diabetes is hard. That's a hell of a challenge to have thrown at you. High blood sugars, so high that you want to crawl out of your skin and scream. Low blood sugars that can put you into a seizure, like Danielle. Finger sticks, hospital visits, having to count every single carb that goes through your lips so that you can get the right amount of insulin into your body. Having some other child tell you that you can't go into that bounce house because you're wearing a metal diabetes bracelet. The challenges go on and on. Yet through it all, Chance has never once complained. Not once. He's accepted his challenge. And we support him in that endeavor every hour of every day. So my challenge to you tonight, my challenge to each one of you tonight in this room, is to give all that you can afford to give to Fund a Cure. It'll help Chance. It'll help every one of those junior ambassadors that were in this room earlier. It may help your family, or your friends, or your neighbors. It will help millions of people around the world. My wife told me I should stand up in front of all y'all tonight, give you a father's perspective, tell you how I feel about diabetes. How I feel about diabetes. So I've given that a lot of thought over the last couple of weeks. Because I do what my wife tells me to, right? And it surprised me because again and again I kept coming back to one word. And quite frankly, it's a word that's not really in my vocabulary. Take the controversial topics in the world today. Religion, politics, race, sexuality. I may differ in opinion with some of you or many of you on any of those given subjects, but I almost always will respect your opinion and point of view. I even respect my friends that chose to go to Carolina. So it really surprised me when the word I kept coming back to was hate. But I hate diabetes. I hate that I've had to teach my son to prick his own finger. I hate the effect that it's had on his twin brother Taz. I hate that I have to jab my own son with a 2-inch needle every 3 days to do a site change. I hate the conflict that's brought into my marriage. I hate the lack of sleep. I hate the fact that my son can't do a sleepover with his grandparents because he's too young to manage his diabetes and they're too old. I hate the fact that every morning when I wake up and I hear the birds chirping outside, first thing that I think of is I wonder if my son's still alive. So let me be clear about this one thing, right? This is a dad that hates diabetes. Three months ago, Chance asked me. He said, "Dad, will I have diabetes when I grow up?" Tonight, I'm asking each of you to help me so that together we can look Chance in the eye, say, "No, Chance. When you grow up, there won't be any diabetes."